that it's not their fault that they're not doing it. We've had a system that hasn't prepared them to do that. It hasn't trained them to do that in any real way. And so once again, if people care, then practical strategy number 3 is we remind people that if we continue to do what we've always done, then only a fool will continue to do it. We remind people that we need to try something different, something that research actually suggests is better, right? And so I say to people, why not try mathematics coaches and coaching? Why not put a coach in these 2 schools and another coach in these 2 schools? Let's think about and see what happens over the course of 2 years, because everybody knows nothing changes after 1 year. And we try it, and then we say, wow, look at the impact that had, right? And so consider the differentiated reality for those who teach mathematics. Nothing drives me crazier than school systems that say everyone is the same. I want you to pause and think about how English language arts teaching has changed, not over the past 50 years. I want you to laugh about the fact that plot is still plot as our theme and genre. Nothing's changed there. We've always focused on character and on setting and author's intent. You know that good teachers have always balanced phonics and whole language approaches. Man against man is morphed into person against person. Wonderful, right? And we've replaced one Shakespearean sonnet with one Maya Angelou poem in the interests of culturally relevant instruction, and 2 nonfiction books with two fiction books with 2 nonfiction books to honor the mandates of the Common Core. But everyone knows that how we were taught to read in school and college and how we're expected to teach reading has barely changed at all. No one feels like the rug is being pulled out from under them when we modernize the teaching of reading. I mean, so yes, we need some professional development, but it's not earth-shakingly different. Come on, gang, go look at social studies. I mean, you know, this bounces in. I mean, our social studies colleagues, I mean, it's really hard how much has changed in the last 50 years, right? It hasn't. I mean, World War II and the Civil War and all that stuff hasn't changed a bit in the last 50 years, right? And so, in fact, if we're honest, our social studies colleagues tell the same story with just different tools. And they've had to move in my 40 years of being an educator, you know, from a Philips-Strip projector to a 35mm projector to an op-scan device, right, to YouTube, where exactly the same picture of Matthew Brady and Abraham Lincoln, the same pictures of Adolf Hitler, and nothing has changed. And so how do you sit there and say that those people need the same amount of professional development as a mathematics teacher, where mathematics can no longer be used to sort students? 40 years ago, 20 years ago, that was the way it worked and nobody cared, right? Mathematics is second only to reading language arts in importance for successful employment and citizenship. And today, students who don't do mathematics, as we all know, are seriously impaired, as seriously impaired as those who can't read. And if they don't know about the Civil War, they're not impaired. If, in fact, they do not understand proportional reasoning and fractions scare the pants off of them, those kids are screwed. We know that the comfortable mathematics of computation and symbol manipulation have given way to concepts and functions and modeling and statistics, and that's scary. We know that technology means that large parts of what we once considered standard operating procedure are no longer valued. We know that we know so much more about how students learn. And you take all that stuff and tell me, well, that's the same as English language arts and as social studies, right? And we know that teaching mathematics in ways that work for all students require very different classroom practices. I think we need to differentiate. I think that we need to say we've already had all these reading coaches. Reading coaches and reading support persons are indispensable because reading language arts is without any question the single most important part of the curriculum. It's even more important than mathematics. But to then fall off a cliff and to have no one doing mathematics or to have a ratio of 3 reading for 1 mathematics is absurd. So does anyone think that the need for coaching is uniform across our profession? That we need to coach a social studies teacher or a science teacher in the same way that we need to coach a math teacher? And so I say to you, there's another strategy. Practical strategy number 4 is go forth and make the case. Make the case that the expectations for teaching mathematics are different. Make the case that the changes we're expecting the math teachers to make are very, very much different. The high visibility of mathematics and the ever so much greater need all call for different approaches and commitments when it comes to teachers of mathematics. I go to the superintendent, I go to the Board of Education, and I say, this is about your kids. your grandkids. This is about your neighbor's kids. This is about making this world a better place and protecting your social security, the viability of the economic structure of this society. All teachers are not the same. And those who call for differentiation among students, which we hear over and over again, conveniently ignore the need for equivalent differentiation among teachers. And then I'm so tired of excuses. You all hear them. I mean, sometimes I just start with this. I say, well, what's the problem? Well, we tried that, it didn't work. Oh, but our principal's supposed to perform that role. That's a joke, right? Even the best principals don't have the time to do it. Well, if we do it for math, we'll have to do it for all disciplines. No, but my district won't let me do that. Well, why not? My principal won't. Oh, there's another typo. Damn it. But my principal won't let me do that. Some teachers have the right to opt out of coaching. Oh, my goodness. And I tell you stories about when I hear I can't go in room 117. It's the first room I go to. And so I ask you to think about the excuses you've heard. Because when all is said and done, we need to be prepared. We need to be able to make the case. We can't just sit there and go, yeah, 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 yeah. We have to have a cogent argument that just because we tried it then it didn't work probably means that you didn't really invest in the coaches. It probably meant they weren't specifically math coaches. They probably weren't trained. You hear those excuses, and principals have no idea how to effectively deploy them. I can't tell you how many stories I hear about coaches that end up doing substitute duty and not coaching, right? And then they prepare for the test prep stuff for the kids. Coaches weren't given the opportunity to develop their own professional development skills. Of course it didn't work. Our coaching model worried a lot more about feelings than impact. I agree, we'll talk about this in a second, about relationships, but it's not just relationships. Well, we deployed generic coaches, and so I beg you, go back and think about the excuses. Interview people. Why don't we have it? What are the reasons why? Go and say, fine, for every one of those arguments, there is a 2 or 3 sentence opportunity to debunk. That just doesn't wash. And money, where does the money come from? The money comes from any number of sources where in Title I and special ed, we have money that is being poorly used. And I'll turn to that in a few minutes in a second. And then they all say, even though no one pays any attention to it, yeah, but what does the research say? And all I want to do is remind you that Pat Campbell's work is really in a category by itself right now. I'm not going to read to you this slide. I'm simply going to say that Patty Campbell's work on the impact of elementary coaches says that it doesn't happen until the end of the second year and the beginning of the third year. We know that we don't change things overnight, but Pat Campbell's research says that the improvements were maintained in the third year and how little professional development gets maintained or sustained. You have NCTM's research brief. Okay, 6 studies looked at the impact of coaching in varying degrees and with a variety of methods. All of those studies showed increases in student achievement. You can hand out the 4-page NCTM research brief to anyone that asks. I bring it along to the Board of Education and say, don't listen to me. Look at what the research says. Look at what we know. You sit here and ask the superintendent all the time, well, where's the research? I'm here saying to you, here's a research base that says we need to recognize it has an impact when done right. And so practical strategy number 6, draw on the research that tells us the traditional professional development, even when well designed and implemented, does not change beliefs, nor knowledge, nor practice, nor student achievement. I was part at AIR of the giant IES mathematics professional development studies where I think we learned so much by the fact that we put together some of the best professional development with coaching, with a video component in a different study, everything that we know about great professional development. And it had no impact, or it barely changed some classroom practice, but barely changed beliefs, barely changed knowledge, and therefore had no impact on student achievement. And you ask why? Because we really did not make it part of the system. We didn't really honor the research of what coaching can entail and coaches can do. And so when we draw on this emerging research, we get to see that coaching can be a game changer and that effective asserting coaching is an absolute key for changing beliefs, People believing, wow, they can do that. And we all know the power of beliefs and mindsets. I don't believe any of this stuff is possible until I see it in my classroom with my own kids because I'm co-teaching with a coach. I'm in more classrooms where people say that these kids can't estimate. And 2 days later, it's amazing what they believe kids can do because we taught together. You know, right, that we need to have coaching because that's how we change knowledge. Now I understand that. We change practice. I'm now using an exit ticket. I'm now asking kids to turn and tell their partner what they learned today. I'm doing cumulative review. Those small but powerful instructional shifts. No, I'm scripting my questions because I know how important they are. Those things don't happen in 80% of the classrooms without a coach. And I love this quote. I just think Joellen Killian is so brilliant. Joellen Killian spent all those years with the National Staff Development Association, now Learning Forward. What I am asking of coaches, and I share this with everyone who's about to hire a coach. I share this with the coaches that I'm about to hire. What I'm asking of coaches demands that they shift from being liked and appreciated to making a difference. We learn that as teachers in our second or third year. Coaches may need to examine their beliefs about who they are as a coach. Where do we have opportunities for that if they don't meet every Friday? The role of coaching in a school and about change and how you bring it about. Coaching heavy requires that coaches move to the edge of or beyond their comfort zone and even their competence to encourage teachers to move beyond theirs as well. For some coaches, the thought of this produces tremendous anxiety, and they won't do it any more than a teacher will do it when faced with that kind of anxiety. When coaches have to stay in their own or in teachers' comfort zone too long, we all know they limit the impact of their work and even waste their precious time and resources of coaching. And so I think that we need to stop and say that when coaches are effective, they're not just some add-on, but coaching heavy means modeling and nurturing effective practices throughout a school. It means bringing powerful tasks and resources directly to the classroom. We changed people from a Casio calculator to Desmos in 1 hour in a high school that I worked in because the teacher was totally convinced that Casio calculators were the answer. And we put Desmos on every single one of these ninth grade Algebra 1 students' smartphones. And the teacher said, I never went back to the Casio. That's tasks and resources right there as part of the planning process. Let's try it. Let's do it together. If it doesn't work, you blame me as the coach. We know that heavy coaching supports these professional learning communities. It encourages professional reflection. What did we learn today? Let's talk about that. Let's go out and have a beer or pizza or something like that. Right? We know that heavy coaching supports and encourages our collective striving for improvement and excellence. What all kids deserve from our schools. And so there it is, gang. I mean, practical strategy number 7 says, so let's be clear that we're not talking about just another fad. We are talking about a job description that's real. We're talking about asserting and clarifying in writing that a coach co-plans, a coach co-teaches, a coach models, a coach demonstrates, a coach debriefs, a coach builds action plans. We remind people of how these roles become so valuable when done on a regular basis. And I'll tell you about my own growth. The last 4 years, I've had the complete honor of working with the Success Academy charter schools in New York City. I mean, Eva Moskowitz is a veritable force of nature. She has created a school district that has over 14,000 kids, and all I want you to do right now is to just pause and look at number 1 in New York State in 2017, right? Outperforming Jericho, East Williston, Syosset, Chappaqua, Scarsdale, the finest school systems in all of the country and across that state. Look at the fact that in New York City, Success Academy kids get $14,000 a kid, and household income is $32,000 on the top left. Look at how Scarsdale has a household income of $291,000, and Chappaqua $130,000, and Syosset $165,000. Look at the funding per pupil. Look at Jericho paying $40,000 per student, and Scarsdale $30,000. And then look at the middle, and look at the fact that Success Academy reminds us that all kids can learn. 86% Black and Hispanic. Look at Jericho, that's 65% Asian because they have why